Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasoda Nandana Vrjana Ranjana. Yasoda Nandana Vrjana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravana Chari. Yamuna Tiravana Chari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yasoda Nandana Vrjana Ranjana. Yasoda Nandana Vrjana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravana Chari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Paramajakacharya. Astadhar Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Goti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Hastakura Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3, Text 44, and this is the last verse of Chapter 3. Tatra kirtayata vipraha viprarishe Buri Tejasaha Aham Cha Adhyagaman Adhyagamam Tatra Nivishtaha Tat Anugrahat Saha Aham Vaha Shravayishyami Yatha Adhitam Yatha Mati. Tatra kirtayato, Tatra kirtayato vipra. Vipra share buddhi tejasa. Aham chadyagamam tatra. Nivishtas tadanugrahat. Soham vasravayishyami. Yathaditam yathamati. Tatra kita yato vipra. Vipra share buddhi tejasaha. Aham chadyagamam tatra. Nivishtas tadanugrahat. Soham vashravayishyami. Yathaditam yathamati. Tatra kirtayato vipra. Vipra rishir buddhi tejasa. Aham chadyagamam tatra. Nivishtas tadanugrahat. Soham vashravayashyami. Yatha aditam yathamati. Please chant. Yathaditam yathamati. Ladies, please. No? Tatra, there. Kitayataha, while reciting. Vipraha, O Brahmins. Vipra Rishi, from the great Brahman Rishi Buri. Excuse me, sorry, no. From the great Brahman Rishi. That's Buri, greatly. Tejasaha, powerful. Aham, I. Cha, also. Adhigamam, could understand. Tatra, in that meeting. Nivishtaha, being perfectly attentive. Tat anugrahat, by his mercy. Saha, that very thing. Aham, I. Vaha, unto you. Shavayishyami, shall let you hear. Yatha adhitam yatha mati. It's a long one. I'll do it again. Yatha adhitam yatha mati. As far as my realization. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. O learned Brahmins, excuse me. When Shukdev Goswami recited Bhagavatam, there, in the presence of Emperor Pariksit, I'd heard him with rapt attention, and thus by his mercy, I learned the Bhagavatam from that great and powerful sage. Now I shall try to make you hear the very same thing as I learned it from him, and as I have realized it. So who is speaking now? Who? Sutta Goswami. Okay. So what is Sutta Goswami's actual name? Pardon? Yes, that's correct. Ubrashrava. Sutta is not a name. It's a designation. Sutta Goswami, just for all of us. Sutta means it's a person who has been born from two parents, the mother of which is a Brahmin, and the father is a Kshatriya. And this you can find all of these different designations in the Puranic Encyclopedia. So we have Ramaharshana Sutta, the same situation. And anyone who has the name Sutta in it generally has mother and father of these different categories. And in Vedic civilization, generally speaking, they were not considered of the best caste. They would, in fact, many considered them outcasts, and they were ordered to live in a particular area, not amongst the regular persons of the society. For example, Karna comes from Anga. He's also considered a Sutta, although in some translations this is Shudra. Srila Prabhupada called Shudra. There are over 100 different translations not translations, but I should say 100 different Sanskrit presentations. So anyway, sorry, in so as I mentioned, Karna was considered he was considered a Sutta, and that was the basis or the grounds on which Draupadi rejected him. She was a pure Kshatriya, actually a demigoddess, and she had the right to decide whether she wanted to marry in a man who was considered of a lower level than her from the caste system social network. So therefore, suttas generally were not considered looked at very well. They were given a place during that time. Anga was their place. It's the name of a country, of which even Karna became, as a result of Duryodhana's grace or manipulation or mischievousness, he made him the king of Anga, and that was during the tournament when all the young Kshatriyas were doing their stuff, or strutting their stuff, showing off their prowess, and there was a bit of a conflict between Karna and Arjun. Karna barged into the whole presentation, and it was Arjun's right to compete with him or not, because Karna was considered lower. Everybody knew who he was. His father was Arirata. So just carrying on, what happened was that it was Arjun's place, since he was born of a kingly father, and Karna's family father, although his real father was Dharmaraj, but nobody knew that at that time. His family father was Arirata, and at that time Arirata was known as, he was a, what you call a Kshatriya, who drove and was known by King Dhritarashtra. So anyway, how to solve the problem? Since Karna wanted to fight, he wanted to fight Arjun, and Arjun was not afraid to fight him, but there was this little designation problem. So then what it was decided is Duryodhana consulted with his father, Dhritarashtra, and he said, well, come on, we have this this territory here. Can we make Karna, make him a king? He says, oh, sure, go ahead. Then they can fight and we can get rid of this Arjun. That was the whole idea. So he said, okay. So they made Karna a king. He was the king of Anga, okay, the very place where he grew up. Okay, I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of the background of that. So, purport. One can certainly see directly the presence of Lord Sri Krishna in the pages of Bhagavatam if one has heard it from a self-realized great soul like Shukadeva Goswami. You can see the admiration, the awe, the reverence that Sutta Goswami is manifesting for Shuk Goswami. That's why he was able to internalize every word and remember every word. He's received that Bhagavatam with an attitude, with an understanding, with a love, with an attachment that rarely is seen. So, one can certainly see directly the presence of Lord Krishna in the pages of Bhagavatam if one has heard it from a self-realized great soul like Shukadeva Goswami. One cannot, however, learn Bhagavatam from a bogus hired reciter whose aim of life is to earn some money out of such recitation and employ the earning in sex indulgence. So this goes on, by the way, quite frequently and throughout India. Persons have what they call the Sapta Bhagavatam. They come into an area, it could be a village, it could be a town, a city, and they put on this presentation of the Bhagavatam for 7 days, and people come and they pay big money for it, and they feel and they think and they believe that by listening to such a person who really has no understanding, no depth, no realization, but simply reads it, and of course reads the part that everybody will be most interested in, of course, is the 10th canto with the Rasa Leela, so that everybody's sexual interest will be stimulated. It's like people go to the movies when they hear that there's a big nude scene in that, so everybody goes rushing to that movie to see the nude scene. This is madness. This is Kali Yuga. So anyway, coming back to this, so So these persons who do not have positive, holy, sweet, clean vibrations, but rather have lowly ones and try to appeal to the prurient interest, the low-level base interests of the audience, and steer and stimulate those lower interests so that people go home and then they say, well, it's authorized. We can have sex as much as we like. Let's enjoy tonight. Since Krishna was with the gopis, so we'll enjoy also. This is not the purpose of the Bhagavatam. It's the very opposite. Bhagavatam helps us to become clean in mind, become attached to Krishna, so much so that our love for Krishna becomes such that we begin to experience a higher kind of pleasure which is not present in material activity, which I'll be talking about in a little bit while. No one can learn Srimad Bhagavatam who is associated with persons engaged in sex life. Sex life means, that doesn't mean there's a proper place for sex life or sexual intercourse. When sex life is done for the purposes of bringing Krishna-conscious children into the world, this is a very good thing. And when persons practice celibacy, generally speaking, except for the purposes of having children, then what happens is they clear this slate, which we all have, the desire to enjoy. And the most powerful form of enjoyment in the material world is sexual intercourse. It's very intense, it's very strong. And so every time one has it, and he wants to repeat it. And how does that repetition take place? Well, it comes up in the mind, the desire to repeat the pleasure that one had a week ago, 2 weeks ago, a month ago, whatever it is. But he wants that pleasure because we're all basically pleasure souls. Soul means Sat Chit Ananda, eternality, knowledge, and bliss absolute. But if we're not experiencing much even external pleasure, external bliss, then how do you get it? Well, you figure out maybe through the tongue, maybe through the ear, maybe through the nose, you smell a beautiful rose, or so you taste some incredible halva, or maybe through the genitals. And so as a result, a person gets some pleasure and feels a momentary fulfillment or satisfaction. But then it's gone. 5 seconds, 5 minutes, whatever, it's gone. And then maybe a day later, some people become sexual addicts. It gets to the point where they cannot stop thinking about these things. And they have to go for therapy to prevent it. So this is a very unfortunate situation, and it is symptomatic of Kali Yuga, because as we know, the magazines, the internet, the motion pictures, all loaded and filled with sexual attraction, sexual allurement, sexual compulsion, and with the idea that this is all okay. This is fine. This is par for the course. That's why Srila Prabhupada would say so often to the devotees, don't go to these movies because they will only stir up your passions. And when those passions which have been quelled, which have been quieted by Bhagavatam, when they are, it's like an ember, a little ember of fire, and you fan it, then the ember starts to come up into a little flame, and the little flame becomes a bigger flame. So we go and we have not been thinking about these things, but we go to this movie, and then we see these romantic scenes, embracing and reciting sweet nothings into each other's ears. We all know what sweet nothings are, don't we? So therefore, what happens is that devotees, they stir up these passions, and then they begin to feel those same desires. The desire is on a low level, like a low ember, but the ember now becomes a little flame, and the little flame becomes a bigger flame. The more it's fanned, the more it's stirred, the more it's stimulated. So that's why people ask me, how do you overcome this type of thing? First of all, don't subject yourself to activities which fan the fire of lust. If you do, then what happens is that you have only yourself to blame. Srila Prabhupada and all our acharyas say, stay away from that, unless it's going to be used for bringing Krishna-conscious children into the world. Better get your pleasure from your tongue or your ears or your nose. Smell the roses. It's harmless. Listen to the beautiful music, the gorgeous kirtans. It's harmless. But sex is a whole different matter. It's so intense, so compelling that people are driven to it and make all sorts of mistakes, lies, deceptions, just to engage in it and to sustain it. So, that is the secret of learning Bhagavatam. Nor can one learn Bhagavatam from one who interprets the text by his mundane scholarship. We have a lot of those persons. We have some of them in our movement as well. They like to come up with something new, something different. And so they interpret the Sanskrit and bring forth Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and a few other great acharyas, and they give a new interpretation on it, a new understanding to distinguish themselves from all the other sages or scholars in our movement. This has to be avoided. You can tell when a person is doing this because it means he's focusing. He's concentrating on saying things that we do not know, that's not even in Prabhupada's books. And because they're not, devotees look very curiously, they look over with wonder, where's this coming from? What's this all about? So, therefore, then he gets a chance to say, well, this was from the Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in this particular, or maybe Jiva Goswami's this work. And therefore, everybody comes to think, well, this person is very, very smart, very learned, very glorious, very wonderful. I'll ask him all my questions. It's nonsense. It has nothing to do with spiritual life. It doesn't mean that one cannot quote, but Srila Prabhupada has taken out, he's sifted and given us the essence of the great acharyas in the form of these purports. We don't have to go beyond, we don't have to go above, we don't have to go more. He's already given it to us. So can we go up above us, the spiritual master? Can we be higher than him? He knows the essence and has given us the essence. We don't have to go and look for something new and something different in order to distinguish ourselves as great, learned pundits and gain this false notoriety which does not lead to spiritual advancement, but which leads to pride, false pride. False pride means, look, everybody's looking up to me. Everybody's admiring me. Everybody's glorifying me. People are applauding me. People think I'm so learned. I'm important. I'm valuable. I'm glorious. I mean, they don't think it that way, but the feeling is that. And as a result of feeling that, what happens is that they begin to look at others as beneath them, smaller than them, inconsequential, insignificant. And the result of that is when we start thinking ourselves better, bigger, greater, and grander, we get into conflicts with others in argument and unnecessary debate, which takes us down, which causes unfriendly relationships, strained relationships, the result of which is not Krishna consciousness, but more worldly consciousness. So we need to be very careful about these particular points. So, one has to learn Bhagavatam from the representative, so important, the representative of Shukdeva Goswami and no one else. If one at all wants to see Lord Krishna in the pages, these Bhagavatam pages, that is the process. And there is Prabhupada is not giving an out, an escape. There is no alternative. So, therefore, we need to hear from one who has heard from Shukdeva Goswami, who has read the Bhagavatam under the guidance or the direction, and we're all listening to Bhagavatam. We're all listening to it every Sunday. Prabhupada is speaking from the Bhagavatam. We're getting a chance to hear the pure devotee give us his understanding, giving us his purport, his commentary, his exposition and explanation. So we're very fortunate. It's as if Prabhupada was here to some extent. And it should be taken very seriously as I'm going to read on, which is really, I'm coming to the main point of this purport. So this is the process and there is no alternative. Sutta Goswami is a bona fide representative of Shukadeva Goswami. I mentioned before that a sutta is considered generally in India 5,000 years ago as a rather outcast or low caste. But there were exceptions. Ramaharshana Sutta is a very good example. He was one of the top students of Vyasadeva. He knew all the Vedas. And in certain assemblies of sages, he was even picked to be the president of that assembly and to comment and give understandings of higher knowledge. That was Ramaharshana Sutta, who begins this Bhagavatam by asking Sutta Goswami, you were in the assembly where Shukdev Goswami was narrating for King Pariksit during 7 days and nights without food. You were there and you were listening. Would you share with this assembly, which is going to be there for about 1,000 years, and let us understand, let us know exactly what you learned? Now, it's very interesting, fascinating, in fact. How could a person sit there for 7 days and 7 nights and just listen, and like a recorder, he internalizes the whole thing. It's like you put it on, okay, record. And then he just sits there and every word is being recorded. So when it comes to reciting it, he can bring back, he can recite, recap every word. So it means that we at one point in time had brains that had this function. And we get a very good example of it. For example, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with the Digvijaya. Digvijaya he was a great scholar. He could create poetry on the spot. Lord Chaitanya was with his devotees or disciples. He was still quite young. He was only about 11 and a half, but so much. And the Digvijaya came on and basically, he wanted to challenge Lord Chaitanya. He was only an 11-year-old boy, but already Lord Chaitanya had acquired a great reputation as being Nimai Pundit, not just Nimai. So therefore, they got into a conversation. Lord Chaitanya was so humble. He took the position that he was a nobody, that he didn't know anything compared to the Digvijaya. Digvijaya was a great, he won all the contests in logic, in scholarship, in poetry. This man was Mr. Big. So Lord Chaitanya took the position that he was just a little nobody. So then he asked the Digvijaya, could you please maybe give us an exhibition, give us some manifestation of your great poetry? So Digvijaya said, well, of course, sure. So he rattled off 100 verses extempore. That means right off the top of his head. He made it all. It wasn't pre-planned, spontaneously. And when he was all finished, Lord Chaitanya said, oh, I think your poetry is splendid. It's marvelous, amazing. But it does have a few flaws in it. And the Digvijaya said, flaws? My poetry? He says, yes, just a few small ones. Well, there were more than a few small ones when Lord Chaitanya got finished with him. But that's another story in itself. So he says, what are you talking about? He says, well, maybe I can just pick out one of your verses. He says, sure, go ahead and pick. He figured it'd be the first verse, because you can always remember the first verse. So he picked some verse like 50th or 60th, somewhere in the middle. So the Digvijaya, he could not help be amazed. How could he remember, like this, for example, the 55th verse? And then he quoted, Lord Chaitanya quoted it exactly, word for word for word for word. And he couldn't even think, the Digvijaya. He said, how could you remember this? It's in the middle. I've got 100 verses, and there you can quote this particular. How did you do that? The Lord Chaitanya, very humbly, he said, well, I have this ability. Just as you have the ability to create poetry on the spot, 100 verses, I have the ability to retain and remember those things which I hear and I want to remember. So then the Lord Chaitanya took apart the poetry and he literally smashed him. So much so that the Digvijaya was no longer Digvijaya. He had to dig his grave as far as the scholarship went. He was finished. But he wasn't really finished. It was the beginning of a new transcendental, self-realized life. Because at night, his worshipable deity, Mother Saraswati, she told him who Lord Chaitanya was. And so the next day, he appealed to Lord Chaitanya, said, I had no idea of who you were, and you have actually helped me to overcome this great pride. I was thinking I'm so great, so wonderful, and yet I could not refute your answers. I was tongue-tied. Goddess Saraswati didn't allow me to speak. She wanted me to be defeated so that I could realize next to you, I'm nothing. Insignificant, worthless, good for nothing. Although all the time I was thinking I'm the greatest in the world, the highest in the world, the best in the world. Nobody can compete with me. So it was his reformation, his time of transformation. So the point I was trying to make is that Lord Chaitanya illustrated that this power, we all had it at some point in time. Only the thing is, over a period of time, due to Kali Yuga, this particular faculty of the brain, of the mind, it becomes somewhat vestigial. It loses its ability, loses the power due to the ignorance that infests the mind and the brain, and due to the false ideas that we carry, the wrong ideas that we carry. So, getting back. Sutta Goswami is a bona fide representative of Shukdeva Goswami because he wants to present the message which he received from the great learned Brahman. Shukdeva Goswami presented Bhagavatam as he heard it from his great father. And who is his great father? Yes, Vyasadeva. And so also Sutta Goswami is presenting Bhagavatam. Prabhupada makes a big point of this. As he heard it. He didn't add anything to it. He didn't subtract anything to it. He didn't twist it in any manner or form. He just gave it as he heard it and as he expressed it the way it came into his brain. So, is presenting Bhagavatam as he heard it from Shukdeva Goswami. Simple hearing is not all. One must realize the text with proper attention. Now, the word here that is most important is the word realize. And I'd like to just comment a few moments on this. But let me finish this purport. One must realize the text with proper attention. Another two words, super important. Proper attention. The word nivishta means that Sutta Goswami drank the juice of Bhagavatam through his ears. That is the real process of receiving Bhagavatam. One should hear with what? Rapt attention. Now this is important. I have often seen devotees sitting right in this room. While a lecture is going on, a talk is going on, and because it's philosophical, it does require concentration, it does require attention. They're reading some notes from some other class. It may have been a Bhagavatam class that they took notes on. It may have been a class from their college or university activities. It has absolutely nothing to do with what is being spoken at the moment. So is that rapt attention? Absolutely not. Not only is it not rapt attention, it's downright discourteous. If somebody is kindly sharing and giving the result of his realizations, and helping us or enabling us to understand things better as Krishna has enabled him or her to understand things better, then we should give our full attention in the hope and in the prayer that we will understand it just as he has understood it and just as Krishna has given it to him or her, that we will receive it in the same way. And instead of just walking out of the class as we did when we came in, we have some new knowledge, we have some new understanding, we have some new realization. Because realizations can be shared. And the ability to internalize that which is being shared has much to do with the attention that one gives it. Krishna says to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, first of all, Arjuna starts out in the early chapter, now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure due to miserly weakness. I've lost all composure due to miserly weakness. Now, I forgot the verse. Now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure due to miserly weakness. In this condition. What's the next word, Prabhu? I can't hear you. Yeah, I'm asking you to thank you. Tell me clearly what is in my best interest. What is the best? Now I am a disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. So we see that Arjuna is in a confused condition. He's in an uncertain condition. He doesn't know what to do, to kill his grandfather or his teacher or his relatives. He's confused. But at the end of the Bhagavatam, what does Krishna say? Have you heard this with an attentive mind? Again, the same attentive, rapt attention. Have you heard this with an attentive mind? Are your ignorance and illusions now dispelled? And Arjuna says, what? My illusion is now gone. I've regained my memory by your grace. I am firm and ready to act according to your instruction. Therefore, everything turned around. Why? Because he listened to the Bhagavatam with firm attention, with loving attention, with that kind of attention which in effect says, if I just hang on every word with reverence, with worship, with glorification as being in my greatest and best interest, then I will understand all that I need to and my problem will be solved. So, the secret of knowing Bhagavatams is mentioned here. No one can give rapt attention who is not pure in mind. So we all have to be striving for a pure mind, which means we should not let our mind dwell in the garbage pail of lust and anger and greed and envy and illicit sex or gambling or meat eating or intoxication. We should not let our minds dwell and rollick in these impure activities, because they make the mind impure, and when the mind is impure, we cannot understand the Bhagavatam. Impossible. Sometimes people tell me, well, I went to a movie, it was no big deal, But it is a big deal. Otherwise, Prabhupada would never have said, watch out for the cinema. They can get you. They're so smart. They're so captivating. They grab your mind in such a way that is difficult to withdraw. So there's nothing wrong with good, healthy movies about saints, or movies about which ennoble us and uplift us and point the way to virtue and point the way to God realization. Those are good. No one can be pure in action who is not pure in eating, sleeping, fearing, or defending, and mating. And how to do those things are all mentioned in the Bhagavatam and numerous purports of Srila Prabhupada. But somehow or other, if someone hears with rapt attention, again, the same term coming again and again, rapt attention, not ho-hum, ho-hum. I'll just read my notes from my class 10 weeks ago, or my class that I took in the university in geography or whatever, and while this is going on. Or another thing I see is that devotee is giving a class, and devotee is sitting there, and they're not looking at the devotee who's giving the class, rather than looking at the deities, thinking that's a better thing to do. It's the most the deities are looking at the devotee who's giving the class. We can't look at the devotee. It's discourteous. It's disrespectful. If I am speaking to anyone here, okay, I speak to someone here, and you turn your face away from me in a different direction, it indicates to me that what I have to say is not as important as what you are looking at in that other direction. Therefore, I see this happening. Therefore, it is wrong, and person shouldn't think that I can go above the speaker by just looking at the Lord. No, the Lord wants us to look at the speaker and encourage the speaker, give enthusiasm to the speaker, give the speaker a feeling that his words are worth something, and enable us all to in some way be benefited, because Krishna can speak through his devotee at any given moment. And when Krishna speaks through that devotee, you never know exactly, but when he does, and we receive that, and we receive it as it's mentioned over here in rapt attention, we get the full benefit, because it doesn't come in like a feather on mud. It comes in like a brick on mud. One makes no impression, the other makes a deep impression. So when you have a deep impression coming from Krishna, it is the basis the beginning of a realization, or maybe even the middle or the end, but a realization comes because of the solicitude that one is giving to that particular verse. So I'm going to wrap this up right now. I know I want to get the end of the purport because it's not fair to, we're almost at there anyway. So if someone hears with rapt attention from the right person at the very beginning, one can assuredly see Lord Krishna in person in the pages of the Bhagavatam. That's what it takes. Rapt attention. But what do we mean by rapt attention? It means loving attention, reverential attention, awesome attention, submissive attention, surrendered attention, sacrificial attention. My Lord, my body, my mind, my thoughts, my feelings, my words, everything that you call me is yours. Please use it. Please instruct it. Please enable it. Please help it to become closer and closer to you so that I can understand better what you are and share what you give me with others who may have less understanding, and thereby enable them to become God conscious, Krishna conscious, and in so doing earn or gain your favor so that I may come still closer to you in love and devotion. So, thus end the Bhaktivedanta purport of the first canto, third chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Krishna is the Source of All Incarnation. I want to thank again everyone who has so patiently and kindly heard this talk. I wish everyone well. I hope everyone experiences all of this rapt attention and gets the full benefit when we are reading rapt attention, when we are hearing rapt attention, when we're interacting rapt attention, and that way we will gain the true benefit of that, and thereby all help each other become Krishna conscious. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Thank you.